In this lecture, I want to show you how to use IAM roles using service accounts on Kubernetes, which is a feature of EKS. EKS supports IAM roles for service accounts, or abbreviated IRSA. With this feature, you can specify IAM policies at a pod level. For example, one specific pod in the cluster can access an S3 bucket, but others cannot. Previously, IAM policies would have to be set up on the worker level using EC2 instance roles. So that means that you would set one IAM policy and all the pods, for example, could access S3. With IAM roles for service accounts, it lets you hand out permissions on a more granular level, so on a pod level. So you can say one pod can have access to S3, the other pod cannot have access to S3 or to a specific bucket, depending on the IAM policy you are going to use. One major caveat: the app running in the container that uses the AWS SDK must have a recent SDK to be able to work with these credentials. What SDK and libraries to use is explained in the AWS documentation. So if you want to use this feature, it's best to check the documentation on this IAM roles for service accounts, and it will be explained. IAM roles for service accounts uses the IAM OpenID Connect provider, OIDC, that EKS exposes. To link an IAM role with a service account, you need to add an annotation to the service account. So this is how it looks. You have a YAML definition for a service account, and then the annotation which specifies the role ARN that you want to use for that service account. And then you link your service account to a pod, and then the pod can use that role. The EKS pod identity webhook will then automatically inject environment variables into the pod that have this service account assigned. So when the pod starts, it will inject the environment variables AWS role ARN and AWS web identity token file. These environment variables will be picked up by the AWS SDK during authentication. Let me show you that in a diagram so that it is easier to understand. So here on the left you have the Kube API server. In the Kube API server you have a mutating admission controller. So whenever a pod is launched, this is triggered. And then AWS has the Amazon EKS pod identity webhook configured, here on the left in green. This webhook will then be executed whenever a pod is launched. Then in the middle here we have a pod with a service account, and the service account has the role annotated that we want to use. So when we launch this pod, then the webhook will be executed. The webhook will inject the environment variables, AWS role ARN and AWS web identity token file. In the token file, you will then find a JDLT, and then the AWS JDK will read those variables, the AWS role ARN and the token file, and then it can assume this role using this web identity token file. So this web identity token file is a JDLT. The SDK can go to STS, assume this role, and then it will get credentials that it can then use to, for example, access AWS services like S3. This is it in a nutshell. In the next demo, I will show you how that works on our EKS cluster.